Have you pulled up from the weekend and the game against Melbourne, and what have you broken down from that one?
Pulled up pretty well physically. We analysed the game pretty in depth. Obviously, it wasn't a great performance on our behalf, but we analysed it in depth the other day, and we come away with a few things, as Horst mentioned, to work on towards this week. Obviously, Port Adelaide are now our focus.
Yeah, I mean, you were sort of in touch with them during the third quarter. I think it was one goal of difference early on in the third. Can you put a finger on why they were able to run away with it so easily?
It just came down to our defensive transition and intent towards the back end of the third quarter and throughout the fourth quarter, which was really disappointing because that's something we hold ourselves accountable to a lot of the time, and something we're usually pretty good at. So for that to be our downfall on the weekend was very disappointing.
One of the things to come out of the game is some comment that the Swans have an issue at the MCG. Obviously, the grand final everyone knows about in this game, but you were in touch late on, and maybe some people forget that you beat the D's in the first final there, which is only your third last game at the MCG. So what have you made of some of that commentary that the Swans have an issue now at the MCG?
Yeah, I haven't really read much into it. Obviously, as you said, we beat the D's twice there last year, and obviously our last two games haven't been too good there, but I don't think it's got anything to do with the MCG. We love going down to the G as a group, and having the South Melbourne faithful down there support us, and I definitely don't think it's an issue with the ground.
What about Port? I think it's the only team that you haven't beaten in your AFL career, but that's the same for a lot of your teammates. 0-6 against Port for the Swans, which is an odd record. I know the last 4 games have been at Adelaide Oval, but what do you make of that? Why haven't you been able to get over them lately?
I'm not sure if there's any reason as to why we haven't been able to beat them, but as I said before, post the review of the Melbourne game and leading up to this game, we know we're going to have to be at our best and take some learnings from last week, which will be vital this week.
From a midfield point of view, is there something about Wines and Boak and the others that have been in there that have maybe caused you guys some issues in the past from your experiences?
Maybe in the past they were a lot mature than our midfield, but I think coming off the back of last year and having a lot of time spent together, our midfield has no excuse, and we're ready to rock and roll and bring it up against their bigger and more mature bodies.
What about your midfield dynamic in the early part of the season? How have you found the mix down there? Is it the same as last season? Has anything changed? What would you make of it so far?
Yeah, it's been good. I think it's been pretty similar to last year. We've got a fairly good amount of numbers rolling through the inside mids and wings and forward, which has been pretty good for us. So no real difference to last year. So hopefully we can bounce back from a disappointing result in contested footy on the weekend and go again this week.
Your analysis on Port to this point, what have you made of them so far in the season?
Obviously coming off a bit of a disappointing loss in the showdown, so obviously another team that'll be wound up and ready to go. So just off the back of last week, they'll be looking to lift their contested footy, and they're the number one pressure side in the comp for the round last week, and that's something we hold in pretty high stead here at the Swans. So it'll be a good matchup in that area on the field. So we'll have to be at our best.
The youngsters up forward, Joel Amartey and Logan McDonald, have had pretty good starts to the season. What's it been like for you seeing them, running out with a fair bit of zip about them in the early stages? Has it freshened up the look in the forward line for a midfielder?
Yeah, it's been nice to see the boys kicking some goals. It's been really good for not only the group but for themselves. They've got a lot of confidence out of the first few weeks, so hopefully they can keep building on that and keep going towards the back end of the year.
I saw today that there was a little bit of criticism about Isaac Heaney's start to the season, maybe a little bit quiet by his very high standards. And what have you made of the way Isaac's going about it? Has his game changed a bit? It looks like maybe he's playing a bit more inside 50. Is there an adjustment there?
No real adjustment from my point of view or my way I've looked at the game. Heaney, as you said, he's got a very high standard. I think his level of footy that he's played over the last 5 or 6 years or so will be much higher than anyone else's capability, so I'm sure he'll be able to get back to that. But he's still tracking along quite nicely at the Swans.
Nice. And what about you, mate? You finished third in the best and fairest last season, which summed up a really strong campaign. You were, I think, top 6 in the AFL for tackles. What do you want to do with your game to take it to maybe an even higher level this season? Have you identified anything?
I think, as you said, the way I finished off the year last year. It'd be nice to put together a full season at that sort of level, but each week I just really just focus on playing my role, which is bringing that pressure from a midfield point of view and getting our scramble going. So if I can do that and get in the opposition's face, I'm very happy with how I'm going.
Do you enjoy flying under the radar? I mean, third and the best and fairest is a pretty high accolades in a team that makes the grand final, but maybe you don't get spoken about as much as others at the Swans. What do you make of that?
Oh, mate, does not bother me at all. I'm very happy with what everyone thinks of me within inside these four walls, and that's what's most important. Horse mentions a lot that it doesn't really matter what people on the outside think or say, and whatever's mentioned in here is what you should value the most. So that's definitely the approach that I take.
Thanks, mate.
No worries.
Any other questions, guys?
There's been a bit of commentary around the dissent rule this week. Does what happened in 1-3 kind of alter how you're going to interact with umpires going forward?
Not personally. It's been made very clear over the last 12 months or so that any sort of interaction in a demonstrative manner is not taken lightly by the umpires, and it's up to their interpretation as to whether it's a 50-metre or free kick or not, as we saw over the weekend. But yeah, I think the clear message is just to not engage, and the point of view that the club takes is definitely that.